Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is chapter 83 of Touched. This one is titled Hatching a Plan. Just a friendly note before we start the chapter. This one in the original book has a scene, an adult scene, so I have cut that out and I have faded my voice out as it starts and faded back in to continue on the chapter after it's finished. So the reason for there being just a bit of music randomly in the middle of this chapter is to indicate that something happened between Hawks and Yin, and then we continue on with the rest of the chapter, keeping it very PG and happy for everybody. Honey bunny, I'm sorry I cut your date short today. Could we do a little dealsy? Brian asked as he wiggled his fingers to the side of his head. What kind of deal? Hawks asked with a bit of hesitancy. Well, honey bun, you know what happened today, and you know how I feel about Miranda. And I was wondering if you could get me a little help in getting her just desserts hand delivered to her ho ass, Brian said with an exaggerated wink. What did you have in mind, Brian? Hawks asked cautiously. You wouldn't happen to have the number of a private investigator, would you? Brian asked innocently, batting his eyelashes. Oh, yes, I do actually, Hawks said with a devious chuckle. I like this idea. I'll make it happen. I thought you were going to ask me to turn a blind eye while you broke into her shop and snapped the daisy heads, he said with a laugh. Oh, trust me, boo-boo, I definitely entertained that idea, Brian said as he popped a hip out and placed his manicured hand on it. But I'm smarter than that, and I want it to go down like a ship on fire. Hawks laughed. Oh, remind me to never go up against you then, he chuckled. Oh, schnookums, you're special, Brian replied with a wink. In return for your help, would you like another date soon? Actually, Hawks replied with a glint in his eye, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind taking Hiyoko for maybe an hour or two tonight. Brian studied Hawks's face for a second, then chuckled deviously. Baby boy, I see you, he leered. You got some blue balls that need attention. Don't worry, I'ma make sure you get some. Thanks, man, Hawks said with a chuckle as he put his hand out for a handshake, and Brian slapped it before doing an elaborate finger wiggle while pulling his hand away, influencing his own personal handshake style. Later that night, after Brian and Anthony had gone home, you were just finishing up feeding Hiyoko when Hawks called out. How you going, baby? He called from the kitchen. Almost done, you called back. Hiyoko finished feeding and you burped him before gently rocking him off to sleep and popping him down in his cot. All done, he said happily as you walked out of the room. Hawks was leaning back against the counter, a familiar carnal look in his eyes. He watched you walk towards him. You look suspicious, you said with a chuckle, eyeing him dubiously. He's here, Hawks said lowly. Who's here? You said with confusion in your voice as you looked around. Just then there was that telltale rap-a-tap-tap on the door, and you looked at the door, then back to Hawks. Brian? Why is he here? You asked. Hawks chuckled knowingly and pushed off the counter, strolling to the door with hands in pockets, his arm muscles drawing your attention as he walked. Hey, wingman, Hawks greeted with a smile as he took one hand out of his pocket to open the door. Hi, you gorgeous man, you, Brian replied as he sashayed into the house like he owned the place. Where's my nug-nug? He squealed as he clapped his hands excitedly. He's sleeping, Bri. What brings you back here? You asked curiously with a smile. Well, Brian said with a hand flick. I would tell you, but that would ruin the surprise, he said with an exaggerated wiggle of his eyebrows. I'm here to snuggle Hiyoko away for an hour or so while you and your man have some quality time together. You glanced at Hawks, who was leaning up against the front door frame with his shoulder, legs crossed across at the ankles and hands back in pockets. He gave you a very sly half smirk and winked at you, which made you blush furiously. Oh, he said softly, your words catching in your throat as your heart rate increased. So I'll just snatch this little sleeping bean and be off, Brian whispered with exaggerated lip movements as he tiptoed to Hiyoko's room. You stayed where you were, watching as Bri took your sleeping bundle out towards the front door. I'll just take him for a little walk back to our place, and in a few hours I'll bring him back, Brian said with an exaggerated wink at you. Oh, it's almost as if he knows what Hawks wants to do to me, you wailed internally with embarrassment. Hawks and Brian exchanged knowing smirks as Brian left with Hiyoko, and you looked at Hawks for an explanation. Does Brian know what you have in mind for tonight? You asked your man as he approached you purposefully, like a lion locking onto its prey. He sure does, Hawks said lowly with a smirk as he got to you and grabbed you around the waist, pulling your body against his. You gasped as he kissed you roughly and neatly down your neck, your body giving in to him already. It had been such a long time since you two had been in an intimate embrace like this that you didn't realise just how much you had been craving it. You ran your fingers over his exposed biceps and down to his forearms, feeling the slightly raised veins on his arms as he kissed you across your collarbone. He snaked one arm up behind you and reached up into your hair, curling his fingers into your locks and pulling firmly on your head so that it would fall back so you could drag his tongue up your neck, kissing along your jawline. You had no other option than to let him bend you to his will as you slid your hands back to his biceps and flexed your fingertips into them, moaning softly while he kissed you. "Oh, I want you so bad," he growled softly into your neck. "Oh, I want you too, Keigo," he whispered back, head still tilted up by his fingers in your hair. "Oh," he groaned again. "Let's take this to the bedroom." He let go of your hair and picked you up against his body, your lips crashing against his as you furiously made out while he carried you to the room. Clothes were removed quickly, amid huffs and kisses, and he threw you down on the bed, the two of you in just your underwear as you wrapped your legs around his lower half, intertwining your legs with his as your hips rocked together. His hands were all over you for a bit as he lay atop you, feeling up your sides, then sliding around firmly holding your face while your tongue slid and wrestled together and your hands dragged down his back from where his wing bones came out. Presently he tucked his wings in and rolled, pulling your body up over his to straddle him. After your little romp together, Brian arrived back with a still sleeping Hiyoko in arms. "He's been sleeping like a good little prince that whole time," Brian said happily as he gently placed Hiyoko back in his cot. "Did you all babies have fun?" He leered at Hawks and you. "Definitely," Hawks replied with a bright smile. You blushed and fiddled with your shirt. "Okay, well, I'ma head home and have me some Anthony then," Brian said as he popped a leg up and pranced to the door. "Oh, I didn't need to know that," you wailed internally, trying not to think about what Anthony and Brian got up to in their spare time. Hawks chuckled. "Enjoy," he called softly as Brian left. "Oh, I will, sir. No need to tell me what to do," Brian replied with a cheeky smirk and a hair flick as he strutted out the door. "Toodles!" "Oh my God, how embarrassing. He knew what we were doing," you wailed softly to Hawks. "I wouldn't worry about it," Hawks said with a laugh as he wrapped an arm around your shoulders. "He's not the type to be put off by knowing what we get up to in the bedroom." "Yeah, but still," you wailed. "Actually, speaking of," Hawks said, changing the subject, "Brian offered to look after Hiyoko tonight in return for me getting him a private investigator for the whole Miranda thing." "Oh my God, really?" you gasped. "Is he going to expose her and Mr. Fudgepacker's affair?" "I'm guessing so," Hawks said with a cheeky smile as he turned and led you to the bedroom to turn in for the night. "I've got something else that I'll do as well, just to really put a nail in Miranda's coffin." "Really? What's that?" you asked excitedly. "Ah, you'll just have to wait and see," Hawks said cheekily as he bent down and gave you a kiss on the forehead. "Let's get to sleep before Hiyoko wakes up. He's usually up for a feed around 3 a.m, yeah?" "Yep, like clockwork," you groaned. "Who knows, he might just sleep longer tonight," Hawks said hopefully as you crawled into bed. You lay down and Hawks snuggled in behind you, resting his wing over you both as you drifted off to sleep. And that is the end of Chapter 83. Stay tuned for Chapter 84.